I'll open with a peace chant. Om Vanme Manasi Pratishtita Mano Me Vachi Pratishtitam Aviravirmaheti Vedasya Ma'a Nishtaha Shrutam Me Ma Prahasi Anena Ditena Horatran Sandatami Ritam Varishyami Satyam Varishyami Dhammamavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Havatu Mam Havatu Vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May my speech be one with my mind, and may my mind be one with my speech. O thou self-luminous Brahman, remove the veil of ignorance before me, that I may behold thy light. Do thou reveal to me the spirit of the Scriptures. May the truth of the Scriptures be ever present to me. May I seek day and night to realize what I learn from the sages. May I speak the truth of Brahman. May I speak the truth. May it protect me. May it protect my teacher. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good evening. We're going to begin a little differently. We're going to begin with a guided meditation, the bones of which were given by Vivekananda in his Raja Yoga classes. And it's a meditation on unity, and it moves very nicely into the subject today. So let us sit straight, hands held in our lap, right palm resting on our left palm, chest slightly forward. And let us close our eyes and breathe in deeply and exhale completely 3 times. Everything we experience is based on the background fact of unity. Unity is within every experience and perception. Everything is a vibration, a wave in the ocean of unity. We can feel this here and now. Try to sit as firm as a rock. Feel nothing can move you. Breathe in. Breathe out. Mentally repeating, may all beings realize what is good. Hold the head and shoulders and the hips in a straight line, keeping the spinal column free. All action is along it, and it must not be impaired. Feel your body is an instrument rather than an obstacle to meditation. Know it to be pure, perfect, full of light. Mentally scan your body. Begin with your toes and think of each part of your body as pure and perfect. Picture it so in your mind, touching each part if you prefer to do so. Pass upward, bit by bit, until you reach the head, thinking of each part of the body as perfect, lacking nothing. Scan your body for tension and send the light of awareness there so harmony returns. Feel your body as a harmonious system of energy. Don't superimpose solidity. Concentrate on any bodily sensation as being in the field of energy. Your feet on the floor, your hands touching. Feel these points of contact as weightless, floating. Then think of the whole as perfect, an instrument to enable you to attain truth, the vessel in which you are to cross the ocean and reach the shores of eternal truth. When this has been done, breathe in deeply and exhale completely. Take 4 such breaths, then breathe naturally. Feel the all-pervading unity in every thought perception and in your awareness of people and things in the room around you. Let every thought be dissolved in the vibratory ocean of unity. Feel how the mind becomes formless, pervading everything. When the mind becomes calm, the mind becomes formless. We can then feel how the body floats within the sense of unity, within the mind and without. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. So friends, today's topic is Upanishadic Meditations. And I'd like to begin with stories. The story of a very revered Swami who started out as a young monk. He started out as a student and then became a young monk. And his questions and his relationship with his guru give us a framework for this topic of Upanishadic meditations. It's a story of Bimal, the future Swami Shraddhananda, who was the former head of the Vedanta Society of Sacramento. He was Swami Shivananda's, Mahapurush Maharaja's disciple. And these conversations Swami Shraddhananda shared with me personally. So they were in my diary, and I thought I should share them with you. As a young college student, he came to Swami Shivananda and asked for initiation. And Bimal then said, "What I received was so very simple that it was a disappointment." He hadn't received a scholarship in college, so he was tutored and didn't have much time for meditation. His friends said, "What a fool! So you get a master's degree. What about your spiritual life? Swami Shivananda is old. You should reap the benefits of his living presence." Bimal, in this way, to avoid troubles at the university, asked Mahapurush Maharaj to join the order. So he kind of came in through the back door. Swami Shivananda was stern. He told him, "I'm not sure he is ready. Let the other Swamis decide." But the other Swamis, disciples of Sri Ramakrishna and disciples of the direct disciples, assented. Bimal's friends urged him, "Give personal service. Many old samskaras are kindled when you take this step, entering monastic life. Mistakes are quickly corrected by selfless service." Bimal thought, meditation and japa are more important. So we see the trajectory. And we also see the vanity of scholarship. Bimal's guru, Swami Shivananda, asked him, "What are you studying now?" And Bimal told him, "The Upanishads." His guru said, "Does it not conflict with your devotion? These ideas of Advaita must be carefully approached, and a life of devotion must be lived." Bimal had the opportunity to study the scriptures in the Math's Sanskrit College, and he read about the greatness of Om in the Upanishads. Bimal said, "What is this personal God? When I do my japa and meditation, sometimes I don't like the idea of a personal God. Even the name of God isn't pleasing to me. I want to repeat the word Om without the idea of a personal God." This he told to his guru. Swami Shivananda became grave, then sad, and then quiet. "All right, my boy," he said. "There are two ways for the realization of God. One is the path of knowledge, and the other is the path of devotion. There is no contradiction between the two. In the beginning, they seem to be different. You need not repeat the mantra," he continued, "but don't think that the personal God is different from the impersonal God. Rather, first pray to the personal God, the chosen ideal, and then you can go on to Om." As a sadhu, Bimal was studying the Mandukya Upanishad. Now, the Mandukya Upanishad doesn't recognize the personal God. Swami Shivananda said, "Does it contain my mother's name," meaning the Divine Mother? "I don't care for the Mandukya Upanishad," he told Bimal. "Knowledge has to have devotion. Otherwise, one is liable to be led astray any moment." How? Atheism sometimes develops from the practice of extreme Advaita. In crypto-Buddhism, everything is negated as illusion, creation, personal God, everything. And some of the direct disciples of Ramakrishna passed through that stage. So during this process, meditation on the Om, Bimal began to feel a pressure in the heart. And he told his guru, Swami Shivananda said, Pray to Sri Ramakrishna whenever this happens. Om is itself the Lord. Think of Ramakrishna as Om. A few days later, he said to Bimal, "How is your Om coming?" But as Bimal continued, Mahapurush Maharaj became grave in his presence, silent, unresponsive. One day he said, "My boy, you see, self-knowledge, the knowledge of the Atman, is after all the knowledge of God. God can give you self-knowledge, but it cannot be wrested from him. So humility must be practiced. Every day you should go to the shrine and in all humility pray to Sri Ramakrishna to give you humility, and then you will be ready for self-knowledge." He continued, "It isn't merely studying the Upanishads or just some vain arguments and vain reasoning. Self-knowledge will come when the heart is ready. For you, it is necessary to go on that path of devotion." He ended, "Don't think that self-knowledge won't come. It will come, but it will come through devotion." Finally, Bimal gave up meditation on the Om, and he felt very, very foolish. Swami Shivananda himself was an exemplar of bhakti and jnana. In his early life, he was very austere. There was no show of emotion. On a celebration day, devotees would be singing bhajans, and they came to Swami Shivananda's room. And Maharaj said, "Oh, you have given wonderful entertainment." And the singers said to him, "Please bless us that we may have the grace of Ramakrishna." Suddenly Maharaj covered his face with his hand and dismissed them. Later he explained, "As soon as I hear the name of Sri Ramakrishna, the Dakshineshwar days come back and I become overwhelmed." To the monks he said, "Don't think that the shrine is just a show. In the shrine, the photo of Sri Ramakrishna is not just a picture. It is the living presence. Know from me, the living presence is in the shrine." He went on, "Just as you need God, God also needs you. This is a two-way traffic. The devotee wants the Lord to come to him, and God also wants the devotee to come to him. Brahman is absolute," he said. "For him, no hymn or song is necessary. But Brahman also becomes saguna, lower Brahman, God with form, and in that stage, he loves devotees. Don't think this atmosphere must be all seriousness. This is where you should relax and think, I have come to my beloved. If you sit down," he said, "if you sing a song, if you do japam, if you meditate, God will say, this devotee really loves me." How did he manifest jnana? He sent a monk out to report back on the goings-on in every corner of the monastery. The people, the garden, the goats, the cows. And during the report, Shivananda's eyes became vacant. He was not listening, and he stopped the report. Mahapurush Maharaj said, "Yes, you see, my boy, truly speaking, this world, all these happenings, has no existence for me. When my mind goes out to that level of self-knowledge, then the whole world vanishes for me. So please excuse me." Don't mind because sometimes my mind soars and this world has no existence for me. One day, a devotee came to salute him on the terrace. The devotee asked, "May I take the dust of your feet?" And Swami Shivananda said, "Feet? I have no feet. Why do you touch me?" And he quoted the Upanishads. The self has no feet. At the same time, it walks everywhere. The self as consciousness is present everywhere. It gives movement to everything. But in itself, it has no organs of action. This young Bimal, as I said, later became Swami Shraddhananda, the head of the Vedanta Society of Sacramento, a great devotee of Sri Ramakrishna and the Upanishads. And in his life, he demonstrated a magnificent blend of bhakti and jnana. He was an adept in meditation. He was qualified to practice Upanishadic Meditations, and he urged me to study the Upanishads. I remember one time when I visited him in his center, and he took me into his bedroom, and there was a beautiful picture of Mahapurush Maharaj with a rosary around the photograph. And Swami Shraddhananda said, "Now I place my rosary there. He must do the japa." See the intimacy of the guru-disciple relationship. Before learning an Upanishadic meditation, the guru who instructs transmits the teaching. And it must be a qualified guru, one who is having attained deep realization. And the disciple also must be qualified, must have certain virtues. In Shankara's Vivekachudamani, the crest jewel of discrimination, Shankara tells us, success in attaining the goal depends chiefly upon the qualifications of the seeker. Sages speak of 4 qualifications for attainment. When these are present, devotion to the reality will become complete. When they are absent, they will fail. What are those qualifications? Discrimination between the eternal and the non-eternal. Shankara tells us a man must be intelligent, meaning man and woman, must be intelligent and learned, with great powers of comprehension and able to overcome doubts by the exercise of his reason, and must have a firm conviction Brahman is real, this universe is not. And this comes with experience. And through the years, having practiced and meditated on these discriminating forms of Advaita Vedanta, one develops a deeper and deeper conviction and shows a thirst for one's practice. Now, what does that mean? That means we show up in the morning, in the evening, we follow our guru's instructions, and we try to meditate at the appointed time, the Brahma Muhurta, the time when the sun is just rising, and the sunset hour when nature is at its stillness. And why those times? Because normally we breathe through only one nostril. But at those times we are breathing through both nostrils, and the mind is at its calmest. So by taking advantage of those 2 times, we excel at a better pace. Second, we must develop renunciation for the fruits of action. That is karma yoga. We must show a will to throw off the fetters that bind us to the non-Atman, the illusion of I and mine. I am a philanthropist. I am indispensable. I have done such a great work. I have achieved great things. This I is our enemy. And third, we must try to possess the 6 treasures. And what are those? Tranquility. The ability to detach the mind from objects because one sees their imperfections and holds the mind, and then holds the mind on truth, the truth of Brahman. Self-control. We must try to be able to withdraw the senses from sense objects and hold the senses from within, like a tortoise or a hen laying eggs. Sri Ramakrishna said to M, who is the compiler of the gospel, the mind of the yogi is always fixed on God, always absorbed in the self. You can recognize such a man by merely looking at him. His eyes are wide open with an aimless look like the eyes of the mother bird hatching her eggs. Her entire mind is fixed on the eggs, and there is a vacant look in her eyes. Can you show me such a picture? This reminds me of a story one of my brother monks told me. There was a very, very old man who wanted to join the Madras Math. He was over age, but a special compensation was made for him. Now, he was so old, and he hadn't practiced meditation in his youth, but there was one thing that he could do. And in his room, he put up the pictures of the direct disciples. And every morning, he would stand for 3 minutes in front of each picture, looking at the face. And if you've ever seen really good photographs of the direct disciples, you can see those eyes, what those eyes tell us. Sometimes in the faces we see bright eyes, large eyes like Vivekananda's, others completely indrawn like Swami Turiyananda's. But they all tell a story, and that is what he meditated on. Third, mental poise. Such a qualified aspirant doesn't let the mind react to external stimuli. Don't resist, don't resent, don't react. This was a teaching that Swami Ritajananda, also a disciple of Swami Shivananda, told an angry worker in Madras. He himself had made up his mind not to react to the troublesome co-worker, and he used that worker as a reflection of his own success in his newfound control of the mind. And indeed, in his later years, he was so calm, so sweet, never raising his voice. Just the embodiment of that tranquility, that mental poise. Fourth, forbearance. To endure all kinds of afflictions without rebellion, complaint, or lament. That is tapas. Fifth, faith. What is faith? A firm conviction based upon intellectual understanding that the teachings of the scriptures and of one's master are true. You see, when I first came into Vedanta, I thought, oh my goodness, we get to question the scriptures. Yes, not only do we get to question, we must question so that we understand. And that builds our faith, and that faith accelerates into conviction. And that becomes a driving force in our spiritual life. 6, self-surrender. To concentrate the intellect repeatedly upon the pure Brahman and to keep it fixed there always. Now for us, that's a little difficult. Brahman is a matter of experience. And for those who are able to do that, that comes naturally. Brahman is like a magnet. It draws the mind of a realized soul. And 7th, longing for liberation. Now we all in this room have a longing for liberation. And that is the will to be free from the fetters forged by ignorance, beginning with the ego sense and so on, down to the physical body, through the realization of one's nature. Devotion is supreme, and that is to seek earnestly to know one's real nature. So there are forces within us, and if we can harness those forces, they lead us to our goal. So now we come to the subject, why Upanishadic meditations? They bring unshakable conviction to one's outlook or practice. They are the source, the cream of Vedanta thought, especially the 10 major Upanishads. They are ancient, time-tested, and they're bound to give results. And they're based on revelation. Swami Vivekananda said, whenever you hear that a certain passage of the Vedas came from a certain rishi, never think that he wrote it or created it out of his mind. He was the seer of the thought which already existed. It existed in the universe eternally. This sage was the discoverer. So, truth is available to anyone with sincere longing to investigate, inquiry into truth. In the Katha Upanishad we read, having received this wisdom, taught by the king of death, and the entire process of yoga, Nachiketa became free from impurities and death and attained Brahman. Thus it will be also for any other who knows in this manner the inmost self. So we might ask, how did rishis indicate the nature of the ultimate reality? It was a transcendental reality. In the Isha Upanishad, we read, reality pervades and interpenetrates everything of this universe. In the Mundaka Upanishad, one unchanging reality, by knowing which everything can be known. But it was also an immanent reality, one's own self. That thou art, aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. But what is that which we are? We think that is our mind, because we think our mind is conscious. But Vedanta says, no, pure consciousness is separate from the mind. Consciousness illumines the mind, but it does not belong to it. That consciousness is the indwelling Atman, the I am, the center of consciousness in all. As the Kena Upanishad so poignantly expresses and points to that reality which is nearer than the nearest, at whose behest does the mind think? Who bids the body live? Who makes the tongue speak? Who is that effulgent being that directs the eye to form and color and the ear to sound? The Upanishad then answers, the self is the ear of the ear, mind of the mind, speech of the speech. He is also breath of the breath and eye of the eye. This reminds me, one time Swami Pravrajika was explaining, he was a disciple of Swami Brahmananda and the founder of this center. And he said one time he was sitting in his chair, probably as a young monk, and his finger was twitching. And the fact that this involuntary twitching was going on in his finger brought his mind to the source of that which is behind that. It was not a conscious effort, and it brought his mind to the consciousness that pervades. In other words, it is that consciousness that resides behind the senses and illumines their function. In the Kena Upanishad, he is the mind of the mind, speech of the speech. He is also breath of the breath and eye of the eye. In the Mandukya Upanishad, he is the eternal witness of waking, dream, and dreamless sleep states. And in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, he is the self, all love, and pure joy, uncontaminated by the slightest shadow of hatred or sorrow. The self, or Atman, should be meditated upon as one's beloved. Swami Prabodhananda, who was a former head of the San Francisco Vedanta Society, stated, "The ancient sages knew that insight into oneself and into the nature of the world is very necessary to the integration and inner stability of the individual and to his overall understanding of life and his ability to relate to it." And it's expressed through exquisite poetry. Swami Vivekananda said, "They never preached, nor philosophized, nor wrote. Music came out of their hearts." Speaking of these great rishis. What was the process? It was systematic, leading the aspirant from the gross to the subtle. And a classic example of this is the Arundhati Logic. The Guru asked the disciple, "Do you see the hill in front of you?" The disciple says, "Yes, I do, sir." The Guru, "Do you see a big tree standing on top of the hill?" The disciple, "Yes, revered sir." The Guru then said, "Do you see the branches of the tree?" "I see them, sir." The Guru, "Do you see the topmost branch?" "Yes, sir." "Do you see a cluster of leaves at the top of that branch?" "I do, sir," said the disciple. "Do you see an empty space in that cluster of leaves?" "I see it, sir." The Guru said, "Now look closely at that space and tell me what you see." The disciple said, "I see a star, sir, a bright star." The Guru said, "Good. Now look above that bright star and tell me what you see." The disciple, after a long pause, said, "I see a star, sir, a very dim star." And the Guru said, "That's it. That is the logic, from gross to subtle." So, what are the Upanishadic methods of sadhana? One path of spiritual realization is called the vidyas, the possible approaches to reality according to the temperament and the aspirant's fitness. And they differ according to the aspect of the reality sought. You see, transcendent or immanent, so on and so forth. It can be Brahman with or without qualities. It can be Brahman as the self. It can be Brahman as consciousness. It can be Brahman as bliss. The vidyas are known by terms expressed by their central features. For example, the Pranavidya, the Udgita, the Dahara, the Vaishvanara. Or they can be named after a teacher, the Shandilya Vidya, the Satyakama Vidya. Or named after a disciple who first pursued the Vidya with the greatest results, the Bhargavi Varuni Vidya, the Apakoshala Vidya, the Balaki Vidya. The methods of instruction are transmitted from guru to disciple through subtle means, through initiation, through thought transference, through the example of the guru, and through verbal instruction when necessary. So let's start with the Madhu Vidya from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. To realize the universe as a creation of bliss, Ananda. You see, we hear the word Sat Chit Ananda. And our great Swamis have said, that which is Sat is also Chit, which is also Ananda. The world is a creation of delight for the seer. It exists through interdependence of the whole with its parts. And the creation is held together by the mystic honey, the madhu, on which it subsists, this bliss. The meditation process of the Mahavidyas in the Upanishad, its expansion of consciousness with the object of nature as the object of meditation. Right after my sannyas, I went to the Vedanta Society of Portland, where my sannyas guru was the head, Swami Asheshananda. And to celebrate, he took a whole party of devotees, and myself included, to the beach. And as we were descending down to the beach, we were going through a forest of trees. And he turned to me and said, Brahmaprana, Vara, tree, was the first emblem of Brahman. And so these vidyas are transmitted from the guru to the disciple. For example, the Vaishvanara Vidya is a meditation on fire in each being and all creation as a universal spirit. It culminates in the oneness with cosmic life and cosmic self. It's hard to imagine if we haven't practiced it under the guidance of a teacher over a period of years. The Prana Vidya is a meditation on the universe as creative energy, prana. The Madhya Vidya is a meditation on the universe as a creation of bliss. In verse 1, the Upanishad states, "This earth is honey for all beings, and all beings are honey for this earth. The intelligent, immortal being, the soul of this universe, and the intelligent, immortal being, the soul in the individual being, each is honey to the other. Brahman is the soul in each. He indeed is a self in all. He is all." And this reminds me of a beautiful passage in the Bible. In him we live, move, and have our being. See, when our eyes are open, when we experience that bliss within and without, that bliss, that ananda, is manifest through everything. It pervades all. So human beings, plants, trees, are nourished by the earth. All beings are honey for this earth. There's an interconnectedness with Mother Earth. All beings live, die, are reborn. There's no vacuum. And all beings are a source of joy to Mother Earth, children of Mother Earth. Mother Earth has a mother's heart, which is like honey, bliss to our individuality, to our soul. It feeds us. This reminds me of a conference I went to in Dallas, Psychology and Science. And the director of the Brain Institute informed us of recent studies. One of the latest mental disorders is nature deficit disorder. And she described, how impactful that is. She said, if you take a walk an hour and a half in nature, your blood pressure goes down, your heart rate changes, There are certain, and your blood work changes. But if you take the same walk in the city, nothing changes. And so we see that this nature feeds us. But it's not just a physical feeding. It's a spiritual feeding that was brought to life by some of the great painters and the great photographer Ansel Adams, who had the vision of light and saw that in nature. So all of his photography is of nature. Same with Monet. He had the vision of light and tried to recapture that in those wonderful scenes at Givenchy. Brahman is the soul in each, the self in all. He is all. So we think not just earth, not just the soul of earth on a subtle level, but the very center of being. Then the soul is individual. There is unity behind the manifold. There is an interconnectedness, a harmony, a joy. So this meditation is a means to immortality, nectar, madhu, bliss. Verse 2, this water is honey for all beings. And the first part of this verse, it's physical. We think of water in a cosmic way. Just as we're reminded that the ocean is a symbol of Brahman. See, water has a cosmic element. We think of all waters, rivers, oceans, all aquatic beings, and our mind expands. And as the mind expands, it becomes purified. And we begin to collect in our imagination honey from all parts of the universe. And this may sound very silly, but Vivekananda tells us, use your spiritual imagination. Spiritual imagination can take you where reason cannot. So based on the Upanishads, these masters are telling us to visualize this. Let our mind expand. Let it become purified. And we begin to collect honey from all parts of the universe. We think all bodies of water are coming together in the heart. And we welcome them. And we think our relationship to these waters is madhu, honey, bliss. The second part is very spiritual. It's a relationship between the macrocosm and the microcosm. A relationship between the cosmic soul and the individual soul. The depths of the waters are the soul of water, the cosmic soul, the macrocosm, and the individual soul is the microcosm. In the body is the microcosm, the indivisible part of the macrocosm, the madhu, the honey. All that is in the macrocosm, this vast outer universe, is in the microcosm. And in verses 3 through 14, my soul changes. The elements of the earth, water, fire, air, prana, lightning, space, etc. And when we think of the physical self, we have an earth soul. We have a water soul. The rivers within us are our bloodstream that flow within the body. All water stands on the principle of consciousness, and the soul of that water is without and within. We have a fire soul, a fire of speech. It's an element of heat. It indicates energy within us. And when we think of fire as the cosmic reality, in a campfire, the fire is within us. And when we concentrate on unity, the soul of fire is the power of speech, the bliss element, and we forget the physical element of fire altogether. So what are the results? These are very subtle meditations that are meant to be undertaken systematically over time and in the presence of the Guru By meditating on the same consciousness within the microcosm and the macrocosm, we reach a level of consciousness whereby we know that when we touch another being, we also are touching the sun. Now, there are many meditations on Om in the Upanishad. The Svetasvatara Upanishad gives a method. It's like rubbing two pieces of wood together. The body of the meditator is the lower piece of wood, and the pranava is the upper piece. See? And with the repetition of Om, with faith and reflection on its meaning, the mind rises to subtler levels of consciousness and gradually comprehends the indwelling pure consciousness within our own self. And then there's another system of meditation called self-knowledge, where the fire is kindled by the wood rubbing. What are the methods? Swami Swahananda had a habit of saying Hari Om in various circumstances throughout the day. I once asked him, and he said, Swami Turiyananda, he used to say Hari Om. He said it brings the mind back to Brahman. So when we begin to introduce Om into our secular activities, it changes and spiritualizes all of our activities. And the Upanishads remind us that Om is the highest reality. And usually when the mantra is given, Om is one of the seed words that comes with the mantra that the Guru gives. There's a meditation in the Upanishads where all sounds spring from the ultimate primal sound, Om. Om pervades all sounds, all words. Brahman is the totality of all existence. Everything we see exists in Brahman. Any part of existence is symbolized by the word. So the totality of existence is symbolized by Om, the origin and support of all words. Swami Shraddhananda said, while repeating Om, the meditator should think that the self hidden in the body is like the latent energy of heat in the wood. By the practice of repeating Om, the fire of self-knowledge is ignited. This meditation takes the mind from the gross to the subtle until eventually everything merges into Om. No sounds disturb, all merge in Om. All thoughts arising in the mind merge in Om. All experience becomes Om. By repeating Om, pure consciousness within every part of the body and mind is tangibly experienced. One time, Swami Shantananda, who was a disciple of Holy Mother, was with some of the younger monks at Belur Math, and they were reading the Gospel of Ramakrishna. It was evening time. And it came to the passage where Ramakrishna was talking about the pranava Om. And the young monks asked Swami Shantananda, is it really true that this can be heard? And Swami Shantananda said, yes, I'm hearing it now. So like Pascal's law of hydrostatics, when pressure is applied to the body of water in an enclosed vessel, the pressure exerts the force in all directions. So the pressure is the sacred sound of Om, reverberating through every fiber, cell, molecule of the body. Its force is felt on the nerves, the muscles, the organs, every breath. And in this connection, you see, when we receive the mantra from the Guru and go on practicing the mantra, the body changes. The body is a reflection of the mind. The mind changes. The body becomes more subtle. And we've seen this in wonderful, wonderful examples. Swami Krishnananda Wonderful example. Always the mantra was going, wherever he was. And just a luminous figure from just chanting the name of the Lord. So Om is a spiritual power that transforms. And the spiritual power is, as Mahapurush Maharaj told Bimal, the presence of Sri Ramakrishna. In another meditation, and we're coming towards the end here, in the Mundaka Upanishad, it is said, beautiful passage, affixed to the Upanishad, the bow incomparable, the sharp arrow of devotional worship, then with the mind absorbed and the heart melted in love, draw the arrow and hit the mark, the imperishable Brahman. So we can visualize. The Upanishadic passage is the bow. The mind is the arrow, repeating Om. And the meditation is the archer fixes the mind arrow in the bow and aims the mind at the target, Brahman. And meditation is the act of shooting and repeating Om. Shooting the arrow and repeating Om. And with that, concentration is achieved. The target is pure consciousness, the presence of Sri Ramakrishna. So in the Upanishads, we find a wealth of meditations, not to be used in place of what the Guru has given us, but perhaps augment at times when we pass through dry periods. They can become a source of inspiration to us. They can reinvigorate, renew our spiritual life by giving fresh clues how to approach the cave of the heart. And with these meditations, we enter deep within with the light of the ancient wisdom of the Upanishads. I'd like to end with another guided meditation, this one on consciousness. It's a short meditation, but it nicely bookends. Everything I experience is within my consciousness. Nothing is experienced outside of consciousness. My body I see in my consciousness. The sun, the moon, I see in my consciousness. Consciousness is the container of the universe. Everything perceived is a manifestation of consciousness. Everything perceived is within my consciousness. Consciousness is the light that illumines all perception. Feel the presence of your body, its vibrational presence. Feel your body's presence from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head. Notice how your body floats inside of awareness. Your awareness is not inside your body. Your body is inside your awareness. Feel the presence of the room around you. Feel that also is within your awareness. Think of the sun, the moon. They are also illumined by your awareness. They are within the field of your awareness, your consciousness. The whole universe of experience is inside your awareness. The whole universe of experience is inside your consciousness. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Thank you.